I'm going to start this off blunt. I'm not fond of Fox News and what they represent. I've certainly heard my fair share of it at family reunions or when I'm visiting my grandma, and I've heard enough of it to form my own opinions on it. In fact, one time when I was talking to my grandma about how what I thought they were saying was racist, and what I'm about to say is not me joking, she began to question my Christianity, which there should be no correlation between those two whatsoever, and kind of gave me some insight on its more dedicated fan base. Fox News, in my opinion, is a fear-mongering, biased source of media due to its low journalistic standards, its bigoted messages, and its controversial public figures. First off, okay, this is just me setting the stage, but Fox News has a clear conservative bias. Now, pretty much all media in this modern day and age has its own biases, so I'm not faulting them on that specifically. This is more just me setting it up. Though I should note that during Trump's first 100 days, they appeared to give more positivity towards him compared to other media outlets, around 52% negative, 48 positive, while other outlets, according to the Harvard University Shoreline Center of Media, Politics, and Public Policy, was around 80% negative, and in those first 100 days, we have the initial Russia tampering allegations, which are going some interesting directions now. The deregulation of the environmental programs such as the EPA, resulting in the current E. coli outbreaks in California wildfires, and Executive Order 13769, or as you better know it, the travel ban. But this is not about Trump, so I'll move away from that. I also begin to notice they have very little tendency for professionalism. Its anchors often insulting people they don't like, whether that be other reporters, other media news outlets, victims of crimes, or just maybe even other politicians. In fact, one prominent example I kind of find interesting from 2005 was what Mike Strata called, well, some anti-war protesters, as he referred to them as jobless, anti-American, clueless, smelly, stupid traitors and protesters from hell in his column. Now that isn't even professional for an opinion column. That's just something a 5-year-old calls someone who stole his last slice of pizza. They also have tendency to skew data in whatever way they can, whether that be graphs, photo manipulation, the editing of videos, etc. Now, another thing I find rather childish is what they did to the photos of, Jacques Steinberg and Stephen Redcliffe. Now, I don't necessarily know what they said. I didn't research far much into it. From what I can tell, they were saying something probably negative about the news service. And in Fox and Friends, they decided to air these pictures, which are clearly photoshopped to make them appear uglier. And again, I find this extremely unprofessional. Like, this is something an elementary schooler does to a kid they don't like in their yearbook. At no point during this did they state these were photoshopped, and I find it unlikely that they came from an outside source. As far as I can tell, these were actually made at Fox itself. They also tend to skew graphs and data in such a way that they're just either completely wrong or designed to mislead. Now, from top left going counterclockwise, the numbers don't add up whatsoever. There's no consistency between the line placement, as you can see. The graph at the bottom left is in such a way that a 4.6 difference seems giant, and even more numbers not adding up. Now this, again, for these, sometimes I can't tell whether this is actual incompetence or actual manipulation, but either way, this is really uncalled for. And another example, an example of them purposefully saying data in such a way that it sounded well, much different than what it really represented, was as recently as 2016, where Fox and Friends co-host Abby Huntsman made an unsupported claim that food stamp fraud is at an all-time high. She was also quick to say, should food stamps be removed altogether? The actual rise that she was reporting on from 2006 to 2011 was 0.3%. The rise was from 1.0 to 1.3, leaving 98.7% people still using them valid, and she still called for them to be removed. An example of video manipulation I found was an interesting segment by Sean Hannity, where he took the Obama under the tax plan passed by the last administration, taxes are scheduled to go substantially next year for everybody, and then change it to taxes are supposed to go up substantially for everybody. They also had, if you've watched Fox News for any amount of time, you'll also know that they have an interesting relationship with Obama. Now, I don't think Obama was a perfect president, but they found ways to disagree with him, which I kind of find offensive. Specifically, their Islamophobic rhetoric against him. They openly endorsed the Barack Obama as a secret Muslim conspiracy theory as early as 2007, when they claimed an anonymous tip from the conservative news magazine Insight that Obama was a practicing Muslim in Indonesia as a child. There's also numerous other instances where they sort of imply that he's in line with terrorists, but don't really outright say it, so they can still get away with it. But there's also other instances in 2013, right after the Boston bombing. Sean Hannity claimed that Keith Ellison swearing on the Quran would embolden Islamic extremists and make new ones, and then proceeded to compare the Quran to Mein Kampf, which I shouldn't tell you why comparing a religious text to a book that would later result in the genocide of millions as a little bit more than a scare tactic. Like, this was also significant because the Boston bombing didn't have anything to do with Keith Ellison, so it is clearly a scare tactic. And also in 2015, Stephen Emerson said, in Britain, there's just no-go zones. There are actual cities like Birmingham that are totally Muslim, where non-Muslims simply don't go in. This was in fact a complete fabrication with no supporting evidence. In fact, Birmingham is a mostly Christian city. Fox News is also bigoted against just people of color in general. For example, this is actually really recent, following the recent, pepper spraying and tear gassing of migrants. They got on Ronald Colburn, the founder of the Border Patrol Foundation, and in it he stated, "It's natural, you can actually put it on your nachos and eat it." I don't have to say why that's racist. I think you can understand the gist of it. And I should note, this is not an actual Fox member, this is somebody they got on, but during the entire time they were mostly agreeing with what he was saying. He also goes on to say, pepper spray is such a good deterrent without any long-term harm. Pepper spray and tear gas are a chemical weapon which can result into massive amounts of pain, and they can cause people to go into shock or sudden death. And since it's technically a chemical weapon, it's also banned by the Geneva Convention, so that's nice. Here's another infamous incident, which I'm pretty sure most of you have probably seen, but I'm going to play anyway. You're going to have to escape from this.
And by the way, for all you kids watching at home, Santa just is white, but this person is just arguing that maybe we should also have a black Santa. Just because it makes you feel uncomfortable doesn't mean it has to change. Jesus was a white man too, but it's like.
Okay, let's see. So hopefully I shouldn't have to explain why I find that clip just very wrong in itself, as Santa Claus is indeed a fictional character whose backstory changes from whoever's telling the story. But the fact that she had to argue about that, the fact that she had to say to kids, you don't deserve representation, he's white and that's the way he's going to stay, is downright offensive. And she also claimed the whole thing about Jesus being white, but I'm just going to leave it at there weren't many white Middle Eastern Jewish men in the 1st century BCE. But anyway, as you can tell by now, Fox News certainly has some controversial staff. And I think one incident that highlights the controversy, I can't say that, is as pretty recent as, well, the sexual harassment allegations, which I'm pretty sure all of you have heard of, so I'm not going to go too much into them, but to give you the basis, Roger Ailes fired Gretchen Carlson for not accepting his sexual advances, and soon after that, other women were inspired to stand up against other sexual assault and harassment allegations from figures such as Bill O'Reilly, Dean Cain, and Scott Brown. There's also been lawsuits settled as early as 2002 for Bill O'Reilly, meaning that this stuff has probably been going on for such a long time, and this is a problem that's been in a lot of other companies, in a lot of other situations, powerful men taking advantage of a woman who can't really do anything. We've also have some examples of conflict of interest involving Stephen Malloy, who accepted bribes from ExxonMobil and Philip Morris USA to downplay both the effects of global warming and carcinogenic effects of secondhand smoke, respectively. He was being funneled lots of money, making him a massive conflict of interest, which is not acceptable in news whatsoever. And again, I should also restate that I've been trying to name the names of the people who are responsible for these allegations, and I want you to remember that all these people, that this is just an entire news organization made of people who are willing to make Islamophobic and outright wrong information just to convince people of a point that might not even exist. For these reasons, this is why I think that Fox News is a fear-mongering biased source of journalism due to its low journalistic standards, its bigoted messages, and its controversial public figures. Thank you.
Questions?
Were you holding up your hand, or?
I'll ask a question. So, do you think Fox News is the only major news outlet that is using fear-mongering or like misleading stats and graphs?
Of course, I don't think that. Like even news outlets that I do watch, like CNN and stuff like that, of course they use some things to mislead. Or of course come up with things that are later proven false. Like I believe CNN calling a mass murdering, like I can't remember the exact event, but there was a mass stabbing and they claimed it was a mass shooting, then proceeded to show like a bunch of gun statistic things, and I guess even politicians in general, like on both sides, they also misuse data in such a way to make it appear more appealing, like misusing mean, medians, and modes. So yeah, of course, I don't believe Fox News is the only one, and they certainly won't be the last. Yes?
What would you consider an honest source of real media news?
Honest source of real media? Okay, so, well, obviously there's going to be, again, as I said, bias in all media sources, but generally I tend to go to the Washington Post, or if you want like a non-American standpoint, maybe BBC. Like they do report on American news as well. Yes?
What are some of the false information they gave about Trump's first 100 days in office?
I didn't necessarily say they gave false information. I said they were more positive on what he was doing. Like they, again, as I stated, those were the initial Russia tampering allegations and deregulations of environmental programs, which I mostly have interest in. Though again, I should note that it was 52% negative and 48% positive according to Harvard University's Shoreline Center of Media, Politics, and Public Policy. So it was roughly 50-50. And again, I don't regularly watch Fox News, even though I did a lot of research to find these specific events. So I don't necessarily know much of what they've been saying over the 100 days. Yes?
You probably didn't have time to develop this into your argument because of the time limit. You mentioned it. Can you talk a little bit more about the sexual harassment situation involving Roger Ailes and people that work there?
Okay. Well, again, I find it to be a big recurring theme in a lot of bigger organizations where usually a higher up will take advantage of some woman, and when she tries to speak out about it, they're usually either called a liar or maybe a bunch of other misogynistic words to, I guess, what's the word I'm thinking of? Remove credibility. Like again, this was a big high-profile incident, and as well there was others in 2017. But other than that, I don't really have much to add. Like I really hate the arguments that women are pretending to be raped to get famous, which is certainly not the case. If anything, that tends to more oftenly ruin their reputation. But other than that, I don't really have much other to say.